chance to roll the Torah yet, have you?
Say again.
Have you had a chance to roll the Torah yet? I'll do it. I just wanted to check if it's done. The Torah rolled to the right spot.
Oh, I'll do it when I get there.
Oh, you sure?
I know where it is now.
Okay.
Because,
Right from this morning, yeah.
The entire parsha.
Ooh, right, so we're close to, yeah.
With him, he's going to write it on.
Okay, so we won't worry about it.
Right?
Yeah, I guess we're picking up in 21. Okay, good.
Serious study. I can't hear. There's blessings sometimes. So I went to the bar mitzvah this morning. Yeah, that's such a good time. But even I knew everybody, and it was great. The verbiage. You take politicians. It's like the that applies to some people in the resident. I know very well. He mentioned come visit his Super Bowl. Watching the Super Bowl. I mean, the Giants aren't playing as much. Of course, Philadelphia really go back to so does the they watch the Bills, but say what I needed to help me. I was around all my Spiegel friends for 28 of them. I was sharing the food on myself with one of the we got first. We had a duet for the first quarter. So they had part of that over there. Right. Good feeling. Yeah. Nobody said that. I do call it I like the cartoons. Right. The other thing is listening to other people. It's a hefty dose of food for your stress. Yeah. I got rid of my stress. So you don't take, you don't depart soon, do you? When you're in the Bay Area?
No, I finished this year.
When does it start?
June 20.
Oh, so it's like around the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, they give you a place to stay. People do that.
No, it's not a summer anymore because the rabbi's families are all with the pets now, and
Yeah, it's a bit of work.
So no, but they do instead provide the financial support possible. It's very helpful.
Well, just getting a job is
It is, but it's currently harder for conversations with my rabbi than it is with rabbis in my house.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah. There's probably in the reform movement, I think 50% of the places that vote for my rabbi, but in the service movement are more.
You're really going to
Really bad, actually.
More conservative.
Well, mine's both.
Oh, the one you're going to?
Yeah.
They combine over there.
Yeah. It's 16 months ago they merged the reform.
Well, it's smart because they're pretty similar.
Yeah, it's just interesting. We're going to do a lot of discussion around liturgy and tefillah and everyone.
You're going to make
but everything else is.
You're going to make it great.
Thank you. They're wonderful.
haven't. They had the latest book. That was like beautiful. It was smart best medicine as well. I was smart surgery 5 times. Yeah. So now, of course, they set my standard higher. But we got the head away rule. I didn't see it. I don't have, it's not like food like for it. I take the pressure off. Yeah, hold up, my, you know, like the head. Used to be volunteer. Can't let some people can't let me out of town. I want to work for no money. I was that deep. He was movement. I was 600 people. The opposite. I'm not getting more than $10 a week. Like, I guess. Try to get a better salary. The rest of the I love being volunteer with the sport. I love the
I'm Jada.
I get charity.
Jada.
I was like, you get
Yes. People here.
good to see you. All right. Good, good. How are you doing?
Well, we still have a few minutes until our official start time, and we also. I moved. You did this inside, and then said Ashley sheet to yours, and then Larry. Yeah.
Because the calendar it said, oh, the calendar says 7:40. Four forty.
4:40.
4:40 said evening meeting. 7:20 people are in the slot.
Interesting. It sounds.
It's in there. I checked on the website.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know. Sounds like a typo. But yes, you're in the right place. We'll do Minha in 5 minutes or so. Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Isaac, how's you been? I'm good. Good to see you. We're going out to my first day after retirement.
Oh, congratulations.
I retired yesterday. I love it. Yeah, I know. It's a time for pain, not colorful.
I think, would you like an aliyah in honor of your retirement?
No.
Okay. That's okay.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm excited. Now he doesn't have time. He's too busy, please.
Right.
I just still absorbing. It's kind of process. I'm in the middle of process.
That's good.
So thank you very much.
Right. We won't put you back to work so quickly.
Hi, Grant.
Grant. How are you?
What's going on again?
A lot of people are busier when they retire than they were when they were. Yeah, I told everybody.
Hi, Joel. When I retire, I'm gonna plan on climbing Mount Baldy every week until these 5 guys just die.
Yeah. Baldy. I also wanted to climb Baldy, and.
I've been up there a lot, but I'm just saying is I never thought I could die on the mountain.
Right.
Did someone die?
A bunch of people. One guy fell out of his crampon. He had crampons on, he fell out. He didn't have a full shank boot. He slipped.
I'll stick to concrete.
I mean, it's sad. One guy they haven't even found yet.
Yeah.
Where
Where
is
is
Mount
Mount Baldy?
Just right outside of Claremont. You know, it's like a 45-minute ride and a 3-hour hike to the summit.
I do want to. I did see an IMAX thing of the Grand Canyon, but I'm not necessarily running to go do it, but definitely want to see it. And I was in the state too.
Go to the North Street, Grand Canyon north side. North side is, I think, more beautiful.
Oh, okay, I'll keep it in mind.
It's less visited. South and east are all the tourists.
Well, you know you ever seen IMAX? The film? They really, I mean, you really get a good view. I remember it.
Yeah, you can go.
Hey Joel, how are you?
Good. You can go Zion, right? Then can
Talk with your
North
cousin
Street,
this
it's all on
afternoon.
the same side. And Springdale in Arizona, next to Zion, they have IMAX. Have you been Zion?
Big where?
Zion National Park.
No.
I've been there.
I'm missing a lot of nature, you know.
Oh,
New York concrete. I gotta, what I used to do in California when I first came, every weekend that I was free, I would either go to La Jolla, Palm Springs area, Desert Hot Springs would have the public dipping, you should dip yourself in 6 places, and Santa Barbara. Those are my 3. But I worked throughout the state. I know Big Sur well. I know Big Sur.
yeah,
Big Sur.
Cambria, you need to go north.
Well,
Cambria,
I stayed in every Motel 6 between LA and San Francisco, I think.
So like you and Johnny Cash.
Me and Johnny Cash, yeah. Don't leave the light on for me, that.
Well, he was like, listen to the song "I've Been Everywhere, Man," and they used it as a Motel 6 song.
Yeah,
I
I'm not a fan of
saw
Motel
Johnny
6.
Cash.
It was my voluntary poverty period.
Yeah.
I saw Johnny Cash at the Ramona pageant. You know where that is in Hemet?
Oh yeah, sure.
The pole. I went there and I saw him and June Carter.
Oh.
Oh,
in
you're kidding me.
19,
That must have been something.
somewhere like 1991 or something. It was good. I enjoyed it.
I saw a lot of rock stars when I was in college because I went to Stony Brook. So
Weren't you in Folsom Prison when he performed there? No. Just by reputation, but not really.
confusing you.
You're confusing me with Hal.
I would be willing to, but with less than.
My first rock concert
Oh,
was
was
in
you a Dot Shalom?
1967 at the Hollywood Bowl when I saw the
Good.
Monkees.
The Monkees, I
But
love
wait,
that.
I toyed though.
wait.
And then you
More
would-
important thing is I walked there.
Who do you think
I figured
their
you'd be
opening
on
act
that show.
was?
I walked all the way
Really?
back.
I went to.
Okay, well, yeah. You're not gonna believe it.
That's a little far.
Ready?
My dad and
Ike and
4 months.
Tina Turner.
Oh,
Not bad for a guy.
that is cool.
Yes, a little older than me.
The
Yes.
Monkees are cool too. I used to watch the show all the time.
I mean, I guess.
Mine was the Who.
My first rock concert was the Doors.
Another great group.
They were at the Fillmore East. Joel to lead Manhattan.
Yeah, they used to go to Fillmore East
See,
and
and I
they
have
stopped
both
in
have your
Stony Brook
types.
before or after, so I saw like a lot of big acts back then. Yeah. You did also?
I grew up in Smithtown.
Oh, I know Smithtown well.
My
I
dad
was picketing supermarkets all
My
over the
dad-
place.
Hey, Joel, did
Did your wife tell you where to find all those prices?
Yes.
But I think
Just
they're not
was-
lost. They're not lost.
Well, none of them were his. So we.
When you were growing up.
Shabbat shalom, everyone. My name is Sheva. I'm one of the interns, and we'll be starting Minha this afternoon on page 214 in Lev Shalom, or 226 in the Shabbat.
אשרי יושבתך, עוד ילוך הסלע, אשרי עם שכחלו, אשרי עם שלנו אלוה. תפילת אדוני ידבר פיו, ויורך בכל בשושו כשעולה על הלב, אנחנו נחיה, מעתה ועד עולם, הללויה, ועל עצם גואל, שבשי ויקום. יצא הקדוש יוסף ישרו וקרזל זה ויאמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות מלך הארץ כבודו. ותישן רוח, ושמע אחרי כל רעש קדוש. אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ויבטחו בך ידי שמך, כי לא עזבת ראשך אדוני, אדוני חפץ מעתיקו, ידיעות רב ידיר. יקדש יקדש מרבה, ויאמר ברכותיה, וימליך מלכותיה, בחייכם וימיך, חיי לכל בית ישראל, והגאולה בזמן קריב, יאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך, לעולמי עולמי, ברכתי תברך ושמע רבי דמי נשא, ודוד תבטלה שמי קדושה בריחו, לעולם מכל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבעתה ונחמתה, תמי רבי עלמה, ויאמרו אמן. ואני תפילתי לך, אדוני עת רצון, אלוהים ברב חסדך, ענני באמת ישעך. ויהי בן סוהרום, ויאמר משה, קומה אדוני ויחוץ אוהביך, וינוסו משונאיך מפניך, כי מציון תצא תורה, ודבר אדוני מירושלים, ברוך ששת עולמו ישראל, בשלום.
This afternoon we'll be reading from
Stuck down here.
Yeah, I have this is stuck in here.
This afternoon we'll be reading from Parashat Mishpatim. We are in Exodus 21, starting at verse 1, which in the Etz Chaim is well, don't go too far. You're coming right back up to the Aliyah. Joel, don't go too far. Come back. 456. Thank you. Yes. Yeah.
You know where it is?
Ya'amod
Yechiel ben Harav Chaim B'Shoshana.
Shoshana la'aliyah harishona.
Baruch Hashem Ben Havikim Harav Chaim Kochem Hayom. ברכו את אדוני ברוך.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam
ברוך
Vaed.
אדוני ברוך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר בחר מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Ve'ele hamishpatim asher tasim lifnehem. Ki tikne eved ivri sheish shanim ya'avod. Uvashvi'it yetze lachov shichinam. Im begapo yavo begapo yetze im ba'alishahu. V'yatza'a ishto imo. Im adonav yiten lo isha. V'yalada lo vanim avanot. Ha'isha v'ladeha. Tiyel adoneha. V'hu yetze begapo. Im amor yomar ha'eved. Ahavti et adoni et ishtivi et banai. Lo etze chofshi. Vigisho adonav el ha'elohim. Vigisho el hadelet o el hamezuzah. Ratza adonav et osno b'martzeya. Va'avado le'olam.
ברוך אתה אדוני מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נתן בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. For the second Aliyah, I'd like to call up Ilan's part. Ya'amod.
Ilan David,
Ilan David.
Ben Harav Eliezer,
Ben Harav Eliezer.
Sarah Maya.
B'sar le'aliyah hashliya.
Baruch Adonai Baruch. Baruch Adonai Baruch Elam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Hamim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. V'chim kor ish et bito le'ama. Lo tetze ketzeta avadim. Im ra'a be'enei adoneha. Asher lo yi'ada v'hefta. Li'am nochri lo yimshol l'mochra b'vigdova. Im livno yi'adena k'mishpat habanot yasela. Im acheret yikach lo she'era kesutav onata lo yikra. Ve'im shalosh ele lo yaseh la, v'yatza chinam ein chasef.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Natan Lanu Torat Emet V'chayei Olam Natan B'tochenu. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
For the third Aliyah, I'd like to call up Michael Barenbaum. Ya'amod.
Rav Monish Gershon, Ben Yoshua, B'chalarita.
Rav Moshe Gershon de Yoshua v'Chanarivka. Ben Yoshua v'Chanarivka.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorah.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Elam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorah Olam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Olam Chama Shebachar Mikol Hamim Natan Lanu Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Makeh ish v'amed mot yumad v'asher lo tzada. V'Elohim inal yado. V'samti lecha makom asher yanu shama. V'chiyazid ish al rehu lehorgo ve'orma. Ve'im izbechi tikachenu lamud. Umakeh avi v'imo mot yumad. V'gonev ish umcharov nimsa v'yado mot yumad. Ukalel avi v'imo mot yumad. V'chirivun anashim v'kaish et re'ehu be'evan o ve'egrov. V'lo yamut b'nafal l'mishkav. Im yakum v'talech b'chutz al mishatov nikah hamakeh. Rak shifto yitain v'rapo yirapeh.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Natan Lanu Torat Emet V'chamta B'tochenu. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Rabbi Fliegfeld, I asked you to do Hagbah. And Sandra, would you like to do Galila? Are you open? Please rise as the Torah is lifted. We're on page 220.
Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim. Amaseh Menucha Nechon Tachak Nechei Hashchina, B'malot Kedoshim Etam Kedor, Harakia Ma'asirim. Lenishmat Harav. Chaim Eliyahu ben Harav, Dov Aryeh ben Necha Shalach Le'olamo, Gan Eden Tehem Menuchato, Ana Balach V'Masirei B'Seshech Natecha Le'olamim, Utzra B'Tzorchaim et Nishmato, Adonai Hu Nachlato, Yenuach B'Shalom Mishkavo, V'Namar. Amen.
El Molei Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Amtzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanpei Hashchina, Malot Kedoshim Torim Kizoraki Amasirim, Nenishmat Imi Mori, Chana Rivka Bat Yaakov V'Yitzur Shelcha L'Olama, V'Gan Eden Tei Menuchataha, Ana Bala Rachim Masrei B'Seitek Nafecha L'Olamim, Tra B'Tzrochaim et Nishmataha, Adonai Hu Nachlataha, L'tanuach b'shalom al mishkavaha, v'nomar amen.
Everyone else who has a moment?
Before we return the Torah, would either of you like to share some words of memory that's coming to mind right now?
Well, sure. My father was a conservative rabbi, graduated from the Jewish Theological Seminary in 1947. And one of the nice memories we have in our family, my father's yahrzeit is the day of the 20th of Shabbat. But on the 15th of Shabbat, Tu B'Shvat, in 1946, he and my mother went on their first date, which was the seminary Tu B'Shvat dance. I'm not sure they do that anymore, Rabbi Kotel, but in those days, they had a Tu B'Shvat dance, and that was their first date. So I always connect these two dates, Tu B'Shvat and Kaf B'Shvat, with my dad. And Fran was saying to me as we were walking to shul just now that he was a man who always found joy in just about everything. I don't think he had a negative or cynical bone in his body, which was just a wonderful thing. Whatever he saw, he found a way to make it into a pleasant thing and a happy thing. And I strive every day to try to reach that level of enjoyment of the world that my father had.
Joel, tell us the last time the president made announcements in the shul.
No, that wasn't my father's shul. That was a different story. Right? Michael, you want to say something? By the way, I have your site the same date as Michael has for his mother, and my mother died on the exact same day as Melissa died. Melissa's mother. I'm sorry. Melissa's mother.
I told the story many years ago. I received an award which made it very difficult to bring home. I received an award called the Silver Angel Award for the best program in religion and the media. You come home and you bring to your wife a Silver Angel Award. She wants you to put the cap on the toothpaste and to pick up the seat and to take out the garbage. You turn to your teenage children; they believe that you are the devil incarnate. How could you bring home an angel? So I did the only honorable thing a person could do under such circumstances, which is I told my mother. And my mother says, "I know you're an angel, now try being a mensch." And that was a combination of her sense of humor, her sense of exaggeration of her son, and her sense of expectation. And by the way, it relates, just to give you an added Dvar Torah, because relates today's Parsha, because today's Parsha is very interesting, because it says, Vatem tiyu li mamlechet kohanim v'goy kadosh. It speaks of aspirations. It doesn't speak of achievements. We're supposed to become a holy nation, a holy nation and a kingdom of priests. It doesn't say we are. And if you look forward to what the sin of Korach was, sin of Korach is he presumed we already achieved that Kulam Kedoshim. All of them are holy. not that we aspire to. My mother always kicked me in the rear end and said, you got to do, a little bit better.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Shukran. Thank you for sharing these. Zichronam livracha, and it's clear that their memories are not already blessings, but that you've now shared those blessings with us. So thank you for that, and we're indebted to you for it. We'll return the Torah to the Ark on page 221.
Yahweh Hashem Adonai, Yisrael Shemon Sharim Roshaychem, Usupikal Abelona Hakavod, Yezana Hakavod, Adonai Tzedakah Hakavod, Tzedakah, Unuchayaman. Yekadav Yekadash Mirabah, Lemad Rachute, Vimlik Machute, Mechayechon, Yomechon, Chayedcha Beit Yisrael, Bagalaz Makariv, Yimru, Amen. Eish Miravam Korach, Lelam Mel Maya, Yorach Ishtabach, Vibrasham Minase, Vida David Allah Vitalal, Shmein Kudisha, Brichu, Lelam Chabechata, Vishirata, Tutrata, Venachmata, Ahiram Biama, Vimru, Amen. Baruch Atah Adonai, Eloheinu Eloheinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, El Gadol, Gibor Ben Hara, El Elyon, Gamel Chasadim Tovim, Mekonei Yaakov, וזוכר חסדי אבות, ומביא גואל לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה. וחוזר הפוקד ומשה מגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם מפקד שרה, אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני מחיים מתים, אתה רב להושיע, משיב ברוך ומוריד הגשם, וכלכל חיים בחסד מחיים מתים רחמים רבים. שמח נופלים בפה חולים עתירה סורים, ומחיים ולתו לישני עפר, ויחמוך בגברות ומדומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומשמיע כישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי המתים. לקדש שמך בעולם כשם שמעתי שמותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב היד נמיך וקרא זה על זה ויאמר. קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות מלוך על הארץ כבודו למלאתם, ברוך יאמרו. ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו, דברי קודשך כתוב לאמור. ברוך אדוני לעולם וחי ציון דובר הללויה. תודה נגיד לך, על נתת תצרים קדושתך נקדיש ושבחך אלוהינו, מפי אלוהי משה למועד. כמלך גדול וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. אתה אחד ושמך אחד, ומקם ימך ישראל, גוי אחד בארץ תפארת גדולה. כאשר ישוע ימינך קדושה, לעמך נתת אברהם יגל. יצחק ירנן, יעקב בניו ינוחו בו, מנחת אבא ונדבה, מנחת אמת ואמונה, מנחת שלום ושלווה והשקט ובטח, מנוחה שלמה שאתה רוצה בה. יקריבו בניך ויוקים את חיים אל מלוכתם, ואל מלוכתם יקישו את שמך אלוהינו לאבותינו, ושא מנוחתנו, קדשנו למצוותיך, ותחלקנו בתורתך, ספנו בטובך, ושמחנו בישועתך, וטהר ליבנו. ויעבדך באמת, ואכלנו נלכנו באהבה ברצון, שבת קדשך, ונקבה ישראל מקדשי שמך, ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש השבת. וצא אדוני אלוהינו מעמך ישראל לתפילתם, לשבת עבדו בביתך, תפילתם ויפתח ברצון, ותהי לרצון תמיד, עבדת שלומך, ודגל עינינו, בשובך על ציון ברחמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, המחזיר שכינתו לציון. מודים אנחנו לו, שאתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהינו לעולם, ולא יצור חיים מגן ישנו, אתה עוד לא בדרך דרכך, סבר תהילתך, חיים ומסור בידיך. ואל נשמתנו עם גדול לך, ואל נשחק של יום עמנו, ואל נפלותך וטובתך. שבח עת ערב הגוצרם, הטוב כי לך לרחמך, וירחם כלותם וחסדיך, ואלוהים גיבינו לך, ועל כולם יפרח לכם שכל מלכנו תמיד לעולם ועד, וכל החיים יודו חסל, ואל ישך באמת, ואל ישועתנו בעזרתנו סלה, ברוך אתה אדוני, הטוב שמך, ולכן להודות. שלום רב, הישראל עמך וכל, ועל כל יושבי תבל תשים לעולם, קדם לחדום לכל השלום וטוב בעיניך. וברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל בשלומך, ברוך אתה אדוני, המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום. צדקך צדק לעולם, ותורתך אמת, וצדקך אלוהים עד מרום, אשר עשית גדולות אלוהים מחמך. צדקך אריאל, משפטך דם רבה, אדם ובהמה תושיע אדוני. יקדש יקדש מרבה, ויעמד יברח ירצה ולכמה, חסה בחייכון יום אחד לך בית ישראל, בעגל הזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רב המברך, לעולם מימיה יפרח וישבח ויתרום ימין עשה ויתהדר ויצלב ויתהלל שמי קדושה, ברכו לילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה תושבתה ונחמתה דם ירם לימה ואמרו אמן. תתקבל סלון ובתן דכל ישראל קדם בהוני ושמיה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום הרב מן שמיים וחיים עלינו וכל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו ויעשה שלום עלינו וכל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגי הרצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. אנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים Nema v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol haaretz v'yom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah v'yamad yiprach Yerutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yamechon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael v'agalal v'zman kariv v'yimru amen v'hei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam v'yomei omaya yiparach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei d'kudisha brichu ve'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata ve'amiran ba'oma v'yimru amen yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimru amen Oseh shalom v'brama v'yaseh shalom aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Thank you.
Take a few minutes to get food. Food? A little food. Definitely cholent. And I'll pass out the source sheets and then we'll get started.
Services the New York Metro market. When Elroy is in garlic and it's very we have the largest company in the country, union office, up in the Monterey area. 10 holidays, full benefits, low class wages, Palmer is the best job in the world. But in Junction Square, that private equity company might be our opening. What? No, I think you have to do that because, 1,000 workers are spread out for the health of the whole country. I'm not so mad. Unions negotiate between. But Biden, he's got issues, make sure that 2 years behind Trump.
I'll look at it.
I don't think,
He's gotta work.
I'm not worried about Trump as much as I am about Trumpism.
Oh no, Trumpism is a symptom of the changing technology and out now fear demographics. Say right? Yeah.
Well, I've read this twice.
You don't want to get, you don't want to, kids are reading, and they get 20% of the vote. So you'll go to jail first.
I don't want him to go to jail. I want him to strike a deal.
I offered a water order.
I would say, I would offer him to resign from public if he
Oh, yeah.
dropped out of everything. I don't care.
Yeah,
I'd like to send him to Elba.
I know where they are.
Send him
You
to
gotta
Elba.
have the jail first.
The words they would say, well, I don't wanna give.
One bullet in Munich, they were getting
Silent
I'd say the same thing.
Yeah, I think you should share some.
Yes, your father and mother were there. I remember.
On this beach, you take the money, you have puppets around the beach.
shouldn't do it. There's no other better way. It's gonna be like, it's constant. It's like, I just don't do this. It's not good. And then didn't have to see that far. The next time we were all standing there. Don't regret the bad.
Interesting.
One more stand, they were coming.
So, I guess one way of, so one thing to do is speak to music schools and start repeating. Okay. I think I'll get some bleachers for you. Thank you.
Stacey Abrams. She's like her. One thing is she couldn't win the governorship.
You made it back.
Like I said before, when you divide the field, you're gonna have
Well, that's why I didn't buy a Tesla. That was $70,000.
You want when he could turn back, get rid of them. I gave everyone the solution. Empty stores, put people in.
You've been in LA a long time, almost like I've been here for a year. And then you
But tell me something, if you had a choice to be homeless, when you're in
they're all home.
Well, before Reagan, it was a.
The reason we have more homeless is because it's expensive to live.
the other reason we have homeless.
Now, come here from Minnesota. Minnesota.
The problem with that is anybody who has a mental illness, you cannot make a diagnosis until you put down with drugs.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately, these people are let out.
Take another minute or two to get food, and then we'll get started with our study.
Good luck.
You don't want to stand in between Jews and their food.
I know, I know.
It's a dangerous place to be.
That's why I gave warning and didn't just cut it off. We also don't want to be doing Havdalah like half an hour after Shabbos. So.
Every organization has
Yeah.
Turn off the light like in movie.
Right, yeah, flash it.
Signal, yep.
Okay, so if you're still getting food, that's wonderful. You should eat and be well and also do so quietly. And we're going to get started on our study today. In Parshat Mishpatim, there are many options of what to do. Many of them have to do with God. I love talking about God, but sometimes I also love talking about dog. So we're going to be talking today about this line that comes up really like much of Mishpatim without a clearly evident context. We're just going through all these different laws, and then we come upon this one. V'anshei kodesh tiyun li, uvasar basadeh trefa lo tochelu, lakelev tashlichun oto. So you should be a holy people unto me. You must not eat flesh torn by beasts of the field. You shall cast it to the dogs. So the first thing here is, okay, what do these three things have to do with each other, right? And that's the arc of what we're going to cover today. What is the, you shall be a holy people unto me? What is the flesh torn by beasts in the field? And what does it mean you shall cast it to the dogs? These wonderful, beloved, pure-hearted creatures who apparently are getting our unholiest of food. You can tell where my heart sits on dogs. It was my first word before we even had one, so like. You don't have to feed kosher dog food to your dog. It's true. Okay, so Abarbanel always asks these great provocative questions, and there's a pretty clear one sitting in this verse. What is the meaning of ve'anshei kodesh tiyun li? And also note the construction of this phrase. So how would your first impressions answer that question, just from what we've seen so far, before we get into the other places this sort of language is used in Torah? Okay, God wants you to be a holy people, but what does being a holy people mean?
I think it means here to follow the laws of the food.
Yeah.
Okay, and that there's a reason, contrary to whatever the Christian belief is, it's not what you put in you, it's what comes out of you. You know, what you say is more important than what you take in. What you take in is important because it helps you understand what is important to God. Mm-hmm. Life versus death.
Yeah, so I'll repeat a few things. If people are comfortable passing the mic back and forth, we can do that. But for those who don't have a mic, I'll repeat. So the things that we put into us do matter in Judaism, right? Specifically, it changes our insides, what we bring in, and we assume, or Brandt assumes, fair to say, that saying don't eat the carrion of the field is probably also a reference to generally keep kosher. You know, yeah.
Other observations about what is being asked of whom?
I think to be a holy people is to not
Can you
act.
lean into the microphone?
Okay. I think to be a holy people is to not act out of basic instinct like animals act, or non-thinking people or non-holy people. But if you're a holy person, you think about an action before you take it. So here's an example of, stop. Yes, there may be some food that you might want to eat, but think about it. Is this really something you want to do?
Yes, that's great. That there's intentionality here and caution. Yeah. What about this construction, Anshe Kodesh? Is this usually how we see this phrased?
I think it should be
Are you- Anshe Kedusha. Yeah, people of holiness. Anashim Kedoshim is, yeah, it would be adjectival, right? Holy people. I note that Anashim, yeah, Sandra.
So is Anshe Kodesh people of holiness?
Yes, it's Smichut, yeah. Yeah, so people of holiness. And yeah, Irv?
Yeah, I heard it, I don't know if it applies directly, I heard it described, I don't know if it was holy or described, but having a combination of awe and gratitude.
Awe and gratitude together. That's beautiful. I also note that, well, you can keep an eye on this as we go through, but very rarely do we see this phrase Anshe Kodesh. Usually it's Am Kadosh, right? Just like we had in the Torah portion today, like we already spoke about, right? That you should be a holy people to me. Ve'etim li sigu- Mamlechet Kohanim ve'Am Kadosh. And yeah.
But there's a difference. One is talking about individuals and individual responsibilities, and one is talking about nation.
Right. Individual responsibility versus a nation and the collective, right? And so let's hold as we go forward, as we understand other ways to read, or quite literal ways to read, do not eat the flesh of beasts torn from the field. Why would this be put in a way that seems to be targeted towards individuals rather than towards the community as a whole? When in a sense, kashrut law is something that distinguishes the bounds of community, right? It makes sure that Jews eat together, that Jews support each other in their food systems, that it is really a collective enterprise, and it's very hard to keep kosher in places that don't have a strong Jewish community.
The specific actions they're talking about are actions. You're walking down the road, an individual is walking around down the road, they're hungry, and they see something that, although it doesn't sound repulsive to me, I guess if you're hungry enough, it might be quite tempting to stop what you're doing right there and eat it.
Yes.
And that's an individual action as opposed to something that is seen every day. And the person who's probably doing that is not doing this with a group but by themselves.
Right, that it would be an individual's action to go to be tempted by that meat, and this is to preclude that possibility and say don't do that. But it means to be targeted at the individual,
Yes.
because that would be something that one would do without having any eyes on them.
Yes.
Yeah, it's also interesting that you say that around having someone in great need. The commentators pick up on that too. Several of them say this distinguishes the Jewish people from poor people, which is a complicated thing that has a lot of layers to unpack, right? Because we know that the Jewish community has a range of socioeconomic levels in it, but this is how they wanted to imagine Jewish community. And they say only people who are in desperate straits would do something like this and would need a rule prohibiting it. So you're right on point.
But I'm not sure it's only poor, because you can be in a situation where you're not poor, but your resources aren't immediately available to you.
True, right. There are many ways in which resources might not be available. I mean, I also think about just being a backpacker, for example, a bunch more, this is anachronistic to this time, to this text, but you have moments where you're willing to eat almost anything because you're that hungry and there aren't a lot of options out in the wilderness. So let's look at some other moments in which we see this phrase, Am Kadosh or Anshe Kodesh. So we already referenced the one from Parshat Yitro this morning. In Deuteronomy 14, we have another one that says, Ki am kadosh ata l'Adonai Elohecha lo tefashel gedi b'chalev imo. Right? You are a people consecrated to your God. You shall not boil a kid in its mother's milk. So another example of am kadosh in this case, but that's also around kashrut and eating, right? The next example is also around kashrut and eating. So there is a certain kind of foundation of text supporting this, like this path, this interpretation of this phrase, right? Vayitem kadoshim ki kadosh ani. So we know that when God says, I am holy, therefore you shall be holy, that God is saying it in the context of don't eat anything that swarms, don't eat little bugs, right? Don't eat things that might be edible to some people, but won't be allowed to Jews. But do they all say this? Like, hardly. They're not. This is not a phrase that is exclusively applicable to the laws of kashrut. Deuteronomy 7, Ki am kadosh ata l'Adonai Elohecha, b'char Adonai Elohecha liyot lo la'am segula mikol ha'amim asher al pnei ha'adamah. So this is just, you are a people consecrated to your God because God said so, because God chose you. Not a lot of, there's no kashrut here, right? There's no question of food. And then a few chapters later, it's similar, right? Yakim Adonai lo la'am kadosh, kasher nishbalach, ki tishmor et mitzvot Adonai Elohecha v'halachta bidrachav. So God will establish you as God's holy people. You'll walk in God's ways. So this theory that it's like really about kashrut, it starts to unravel. And then the last example here is also in the Holiness Code in the middle of Leviticus. Daber el kol adat b'nei Yisrael va'amarta alehem kedoshim tiyu ki kadosh ani Adonai Elohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem. So this is just the summation of like kind of the essence of the Holiness Code is saying you shall be holy for I am holy. And holiness is still not explained, right? We don't really know what that is. So we have some ways in which we model and which we live out holiness by our food practices, and other ways in which we just are holy, right? In which we embody it by our relationship to God or by God's instruction and direction towards us. So there's a little bit here to work with, right? There is what in the text, but could someone read the Ramban text on our original pasuk? Because he brings us back actually to Brandt's comment early on, and has a different, he comes back to what does it mean to have holiness in you? Someone perhaps who would be comfortable reading, if we could pass them the microphone, that would be great.
This is Ramban on Exodus 22:30, verse 1. And you shall be holy men unto me. The reason for the expression in this verse is that until now, he mentioned only the ordinances and admonished them about repulsive matters. But now when he's about to begin the law of forbidden food, he prefaced it by saying, and you shall be holy men unto me. For in order to preserve his physical life, man should be able to eat anything which serves that purpose. And the prohibitions concerning certain foods are only a means of guarding the purity of the soul, in order that one should eat clean things which do not give rise to harshness and coarseness in the soul. Therefore he said, and you shall be holy men unto me. That is to say, I want you to be holy men so that you will become suitable for me, to cleave to me, for I am holy. Therefore do not defile your souls by eating abominable things. And similarly he said, you shall not make yourselves detestable with any swarming thing that swarmeth, neither shall you make yourselves unclean with them, that you should be defiled thereby. For I am the eternal your God. Sanctify yourselves therefore, and be ye holy, for I am holy. Swarming things thus make the soul detestable, but the trephah is not detestable, However, abstention from eating it adds holiness.
Thank you. Brant?
I just want to say that look, this is an interesting proposition. I'm not sure I agree with it, but I know what he's saying. That if you eat something that is swarming or something that is detestable, that you will become a swarmer and a detestable person. I don't know if I agree with that, but I do understand that that's what he's saying, and that's what we say as Jews. That is what you eat. Now, going back to your backpacking, I used to be a rock climbing instructor and a whitewater rafting guide and a mountaineering guy, and I can't tell you the number of mosquitoes I must have eaten whatever I was cooking after dark. Okay, now I don't think that made me a detestable person, but on the other hand, if you are so guarded in your life that you can't go backpacking because of fear of the mosquito diving into your freeze-dried, whatever you're cooking, then I think that's where it's a little bit of a bridge too far. But on the other hand, so I'm not sure I agree with this, but I know exactly what he's saying. What I'm saying is, and this is a tough one because it goes against the idea that Judaism demands humanism and caring and things like that, and that if you follow these rules, it's irrelevant to that as long as your heart is, you're a kind person, and that assumes some of that Christian dogma, but that's not our dogma. But I still have a problem a little bit with this.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm not the only Jew that has a problem.
You're right, that we do not become purely what we eat, but that there is a sense of importance and boundaries within reason, right? Like we cannot stop living in order to maintain these boundaries, but we do need to be intentional.
Yeah, actually, I'm a lot more comfortable with the verses on the preceding page where they just say, be holy without the rituals assigned to the holiness, because what you end up getting is, which we find frequently, not only among religious Jewish people, but I will argue among religious people of many faiths, is they fall back on, oh, I do all these things. I don't eat swarming things. If a beast rips something up, I give it to my dog. So I'm observing all these laws. That makes me holy. I prefer when there's no ritual tied to the holiness. I just theologically much more comfortable with that. And I think too many people look at these things and say, well, I do all these things that God told me to do, and therefore I'm holy regardless of what you said, which was the humanist part of it, right? So
Yeah, I hear you, Sandra.
I'm gonna go to what I'm sure Rambam does not, but which is a metaphor. So we're talking about, here Rambam at the end says, forming things will make you feel detestable, but abstaining from eating faith makes you holy. So there are two different things. If this is a metaphor, there are two different things we're looking for. Avoid that which is avoid doing harm, do no harm, and don't do anything that is detestable. And on the other hand, actively pursue holiness, try to be a holy person. And those are two different things, and the combination of them makes you
That it, yes, no, I love that, and I do want to go into the metaphor that just to restate what you said for the Zoom, that when this both speaks to the need to avoid things that will sully the soul in a way, while also doing things proactively, right? That we need to have both actions. Am I summarizing you correctly? Yeah, and the combination is what makes one a holy person or us a holy people. Yeah, yeah.
One of them choose to observe these quotes, but that doesn't automatically make you holy, and that I think holiness is it's aspiration.
Right.
I mean, you can do all the mitzvot, but that doesn't automatically make you a holy person.
Right, and so you're in agreement with Ilan that what makes one holy is not necessarily doing the mitzvot. I think what I hear in both of you is this question of what is cause and what is effect, right? What is the what is the thing that makes one holy versus how does one live that out in the world? And the question there is, well, can you have innate holiness within you, right? You are a human being and you're a Jew, and you know that you have the spark of the divine within you. But if you do nothing to preserve and like inflame that beautiful spark, does that holiness continue to burn or does it flicker? Rabbi Klickfeld?
Just to move the conversation a slightly different direction, I'm moved by one notion in the middle of the Ramban where he basically concedes, at least I hear him conceding, that on some level kashrut is an oddity, because you would think that you could make the argument that what should you eat? You should eat the food that will make your body well. And he's saying that while you could make that argument, in our tradition, you also need to eat food that makes your spirit and your soul well, and our version of that is kashrut. And that the ancient Jewish practice really should have been fusing food that actually makes your body fit to be a temple for the Holy One, and because of the particular rules that came down, make your soul and spirit fit. I happen to be very, very down on modern kashrut, not the individual Jews' observance of it, but the industrialization of it. And I find it actually, and I'm going to use this word intentional, detestable, that I think we're actually falling down on both marks, and that we throw hechshers on all sorts of food that wouldn't pass the Ramban's test of is this good for your body, but a rabbi has established it. And there are so many things that are happening, even and especially in the world of kashrut, that wouldn't pass his second test about whether or not the way that the food has earned that hechsher is actually right for a soul who's trying to aspire. So I would find on some level the notion of kashrut much more compelling if we were doing it in a Rambanian way. And obviously I'm still committed to kashrut. I'm not saying we shouldn't observe kashrut, but I'm saying that it's troubling that and this is a wider troubling thing with food.inc in general, that I think we are failing both of the tests for why eating observing the laws of kashrut were originally part of the system. Mm-hmm. And I hadn't thought about it until he conceded, eat food that helps your body. Well, again, we permit plenty of foods in our tradition that are not at all good for our bodies.
Right. And you've spoken before, and we've spoken about how certain aspects of halakha, like you choose to follow it because you're committed to the system, not because that specific thing makes sense. Mm-hmm. But then when you see the system leading you in a direction that you also don't have faith is the good faith effort in the right direction, like at what point do you hold the agency to say, I'm going to change this part of the system for myself, or I want my community to change this part of the system for us together?
One more sentence. Well before I stopped eating meat in my former congregation, a member of my community was very committed to kashrut, but also very committed to ethics, asked me for a good explanation. And this is right when the Postville stuff was happening and some of the debacles happening both to animals and to workers in the agro-processors plant in Iowa was happening. Like, explain to me why the highest form of Jewish eating should be a Rubashkin hechshered chicken and not an ethically raised, ethically slaughtered chicken that doesn't have hashgacha. And I didn't have a great answer aside from, well, kashrut, right, the halacha. And it was a really healthy and important challenge that I think that the modern Jewish community hasn't really yet confronted properly.
Yeah. Yep. Right. Is it Rabbi Berenbaum? I see your hand, and we only have a few minutes left. Can you pass the microphone if you're comfortable with that?
I want to go back to my mind, holiness is achieved by some things you do and some things you don't do. Mm-hmm. And refraining from doing certain things adds to that aspect of holiness, and doing certain things adds to the aspect of holiness. And I always regarded kadoshim to you, ki kadosh ani Hashem Elokeichem. You shall be holy because it's essentially as a summation after details. And I find in a lot of work that I see, people know every leaf on every tree in the forest. They sometimes do not see the trees, and they certainly don't see the forest. And what this is reminding us, in one sense, is what the goal is, what the forest is, as the higher thing that we have to aspire to. It's then detailing, and part of the detailing is refraining from doing certain things. And I have to say that I studied how people ate in desperation. And let me give um, um, two examples, because one of the things that very often happens when you do an interview with some survivors, it happens occasionally, is they will say, shut off the camera, and then they will talk about the moment they saw cannibalism.
The moment they saw
They will saw the moment in which they saw cannibalism. So the question is restraint from, and I just wrote a forward to a survivor's memoir in which he had the most honest single sentence that verified for me the integrity of the entire thing. He said, my best friend was Ernesto. We did everything together. We did everything for each other. And I'm deeply grateful that the situation did not get that bad that I stole Ernesto's shoes. And the question becomes again, what are the limits to desperation? The elements that you will refrain from doing. And that becomes an important thing. And the other thing I have to say is that I don't know how many of you have traveled to China, but we traveled to China, spent the better part of 3 weeks in China. And we found a very interesting thing. We only ate in Buddhist restaurants because it's the only place you could get anything roughly resembling kosher. And we found that as time went on, all of the people we were traveling ate with us in Buddhist restaurants. Because if it moved, they cooked it in China. And it became an interesting thing how people could not, at least Western people, could not do that. And they switched over to the Buddhist restaurants because at least that had a semblance of it. And there's a sense in which, for at least Western sensibility, this was eating like that was degrading. And it became intriguing to see it over a long period of time.
What's the that? Eating like what became degrading?
Anything that moved, they served. They didn't know what they were having. They didn't know if
Was mixed in with the rice.
they didn't know if they were having rabbits. They didn't know if they were having rats. They didn't know if they were having grasshoppers. They didn't know what the hell it was.
Protein.
Yeah, so we do need to wrap up in a moment, but going off of this idea that that these things that when you get to the point of being tempted to eat carrion, you're crossing a boundary, right, and into a place of something that is detestable, and that thing that is detestable, that's what you should give to dogs, right? Because dogs in this moment are cast as the creature that has no boundary, right? The creature that has no discrimination between what is holy and what is not holy to consume. Because of this, Rashi compares dogs to Gentiles, and it's a fraught and unpleasant thing to read. But the essence of what he is saying is that, you know, there are people in the world who don't discriminate between one set of food and another, right? There are people in the world who make no distinction. There are Jews nowadays who make no distinction too, but like, you know, in his system, he's saying that some people don't distinguish, and that there is a place for that in the world, in a sense, right? Like there is a place. This is me expanding off of Rashi. Rashi does not approve of any of this, but the fact that the text names that there is another place to which to send this food that we do not eat implies that there is more space in the world than just us and just our system. So We're going to skip the last three texts on the last page. These are all the Exodus 11 is the only other place in Torah where you see a dog get mentioned. It's in a very different context. And I just wanted to include as a little love letter of gratitude to the dogs that do eat whatever we give them, that Rav Asi said, do not live in a city where horses do not neigh and dogs do not bark. Steinsaltz says it's because they should provide security and protection. They'll be the alarm system when someone comes into town. I say it's because may we all live in places with horses and dogs. So,
But remember, dogs play a very important role in halakha.
yeah.
They are the way in which we identify if something actually is a food. Is a food.
Well, you're supposed to feed your dog before you eat yourself, right?
So if someone has eaten something, presumably something bread-like and kosher, they would like to start us off on Birkat Hamazon, and then we'll go into Mariv.
Shir Hamalot B'Shuv Adonai. Alot Yelechu Machol Nosei Moshe Rabo Yabo V'Mina Nosei Yishem Aram Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Hazan et olam kulo b'tuvo v'chem v'chesed v'rachamim Hu noten lechem l'chol bashar ki le'olam chasod Uv'tuvo hagadol Tamid lo chasar lanu ve'al yachzar lanu Ma'azon le'olam va'ed ba'avur shemo hagadol Yuazar nefarnes la'kol Umetiv la'kol Umechim ma'azon l'kol Briyotav asher bara Baruch atah Adonai Hazan et ha'kol Nodeh l'cha כל יום המחלל את ראשו ועל כל ערב נחמד 264. Kaddish Rabbanan? Yitkadal v'yitkadash merava v'yomad divra chirutei v'yamnich machutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael Agalav v'zman kariv yivru amen Yishmer barach v'yomeh maya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitvar v'yitruman v'yitnaseh Yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei kudusha b'rechu Leila min kol berchata v'shirata v'shpata v'nechmata v'amiram v'yoma v'imru amen. Ay Yisrael v'arabanan v'al-tamidehon v'al kol tamidei tamidehon v'al kol man de'oskim v'oraita dibiatra dein v'dibchol atar v'atar Yehelahon u'chol shlom rabba china v'chista v'rachmim v'chai marichin Zonei Rebicha, Fakana Mikonovam, Vishmaya Vyara Vimru Amen. Yehi Shlom Rabba Min Shemaya, Chaim Tovim Aleinu V'Kol Yisrael Vimru Amen. Oseh Shalom V'Ruma, Ubracha V'Yaseh Shalom, Aleinu V'Kol Yisrael Vimru Amen.
Amen.
V'urachum Yichaper Avon V'lo Yashchit, V'Bal Shiva Pavlo Chochmat To'arenu Yoshia, Amelach Yaneinu B'Yom Korenu, Baruch Hu Et Adonai HaMvorach, Baruch Adonai HaMvorach, Le'olam V'ed, Baruch Atah Adonai L'chol Shalom. Ma'avir Yom U'Mevil Alam Avdil Ben Yom Ben La'al Adonai Tzvot Shmo, Chai V'Kam Tamid Me'ochol Le'olam V'ed, Baruch Atah Adonai HaMari V'Aravim. Ki em chayeinu v'yorach yameinu v'emnegi yomam bolalav avat chotos v'menol olamim bruchato Adonai ohev amo Yisrael Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Adonai Elohechem Emet. Malchuto b'ratzon kiblu aleim Moshe v'nei u'Miriam v'nei Yisrael l'chanu shira b'simcha rabba v'yamru chulam. Mi chamocha b'elim arinai, mi chamocha nevakodesh norati lo tosef eleh. Malchutcha rabbanecha b'keyem pnei Moshe ze'eli anu v'yamru. Arinai imloch l'olam bo'ed. ונאמר תפעל לנו את יעקב גולו מיד חזק ממנו ברוכתו אדוני גואל ישראל. השכיבנו אדוני לשלום עמדנו מכאן לכאן שלום. כי על שומרנו מצילנו אתה כי המלך חנון ורחמותו שמותתנו בנו חיים שלום טוב ולום ברוכתו אדוני שומר עמו ישראל לעד. ברוך אדוני לעולם אמן ואמן. יראו עינינו וישמח ליבנו כלל נפשנו בשבתך באמת בעמל ציון מלך אלוהיך. אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם. כי המלכות שלך ימי תמלוך בכבוד, כי אין לנו מלך אלא אתה. ברוך אתה אדוני המלך בכבודו תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד ועל כל מעשיו. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, ויאמר דברי חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחיי חיים וימי חיים וחיי לכל בית ישראל, וגולה בזמן קריב אמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה וברך לעולם וימי המיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, יתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קדושה בריחו, לעילא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה, תמירם ביומה ואמרו אמן. Page 279. יתקרא ויקרש שמי רבה, ויאמר דברי חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחיי חיים וימי חיים וחיי לכל בית ישראל, בגולה בזמן קריב יאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה וברך לעולם וימי המיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, יתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קדושה בריחו, לעילא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה תמירם ביומה ואמרו אמן. Vino amarino Eloheinu aleinu maaseh yadenu kono aleinu maaseh yadenu konehu. יקראנו בניהו עמו אנוכי בצורך על צבע כבדהו אורך יום יספיהו והריהו בישועתי אורך יום יספיהו והריהו בישועתי ואתה קדוש יושב תהילות ישראל וקרא זה אל סבי אמר
קדוש, קדוש,
קדוש אנא צבא ותישני רוח ושמע אחרי כל רעש גדול ברוך הוא וברוך שמו ריקי כל אדוני בית שכינתי אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ברוך הגבר אשר תחבן אביהם תחו בתחו באדוני ידי כי באדוני צור עולמים יפתחו בך ידי שמך יהיו עזרת דורשך אדוני חפץ למען צדקו יגדיל תורה ויאדיר יתקדש שמי רבה ויאמר דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי וחי חיים וימלכון וחי לכל בית ישראל בגליו זמן קריב אמרו אמן יש שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ויאמר ומיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא יתהדר ויתעלה ותעלה שמר קדושה בריחו לעילם כל בחרתה ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה דם מירם ביומה ואמרו אמן קבל סולטן ובתן לכל ישראל קוראים לשמיה ואמרו אמן יש שלום רב משמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן עושה שלום במרומיו ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל כי המלכות שלך אמת תמלוך בכבוד ככתוב בתורתך אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר וידענו למלך על כל הארץ ויום ההוא אדוני אחד ושמו אחד יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה ויאמר דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי וחייכון ויומכון וחיי דכל בית ישראל בגולה בזמן קריב אמרו אמן יש שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ויאמר מיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמר קדושה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבתה ונחמתה דמירם ביומה ואמרו אמן יהי שלום רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן
Havdalah is on page 280.
Yeshua
Ashrei Adam Boteach Bach, Adonai Hoshia, HaMelech Anenu V'Yom Kareinu, LaYehudim, Ayta Ora, V'Simcha V'Sason, V'Ikari Ken Kielanu, Kos Yeshuot Asa, U'B'Shem Adonai Ekra, Yaida Daida Yaida Yaida Daida Yaida Daida Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei minei v'samim. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei me'orei ha'esh. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam amavdi ben kodesh l'chol ben or l'choshech ובין ישראל לעמים בין יום השביעי לששת ימי המעשה. Baruch Atah Adonai
Mavdil
המבדיל
בין
בין
קודש
קודש
לחול.
לחול.
Amen. Walking? Walking. I parked over by you.
אלוהים חול, צווינו וחסדנו ירבה ירבך חול, וכך כוכבים בלילה. יראנו וחסדנו ירבה ירבך חול, וכך כוכבים בלילה. אליהו, תשבי אליהו, ונביא אליהו הגלעד, אליהו, תשבי אליהו הגלעד, אליהו הגלעד, במהרה בימינו, עם משיח בן דוד, משיח בן דוד, שבוע טוב.
Tomorrow, 5:15, halftime.
Thank you.
Hello, Gary.
Thank you. Chaim.
Shvat Tov, Gary, Marlies, Tybal, Shvat Tov, good luck.
Yes, that's true, that's true. Good. Good to hear Isaac, yes. Okay, Shabbat Tov L'Kulam. Shabbat Tov.